Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Board of Education's March regular board meeting. It is Monday, March 14th. I will call this meeting to order. The Greater Victoria School District wishes to recognize and acknowledge the Esquimalt and Songhees nations on whose traditional territories we live, we learn, and we do our work. We're going to start with an approval of the agenda. Can I please have a motion to approve tonight's agenda? Moved by Elaine, seconded by Tom. Is there any discussion? I've got Nicole and then Trustee Whitaker.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to add a few things to the agenda, some of the correspondence that we've received in particular. So I'm looking to add some correspondence to B and would appreciate your patience as I go through it.
Sure, we'll go through it slowly, just so we're capturing all of this for us and for staff, of course.
Sounds good. Okay. So on my list, and again, colleagues may have clocked some other additional correspondence that's relevant to our agenda, but this is what I've got. So we've got a March 11th letter from the Friends of Boker Creek.
Okay. We've
got an email expressing concern about the proposed land sale of today's date from Deanna Pfeiffer.
What date was that?
The 14th. The 14th from today's date.
So I think, Nicole, I think what we typically do, and just before we carry on, are these all going to be pieces of correspondence that came to us after the agenda setting deadline on Wednesday, on the 9th?
Yeah, the next thing is a QP letter about, and that also came in, I think that came in on the 7th. So no, some of it is before and some of it is after. So the email I just mentioned is after.
Okay, could we then, because typically, and staff feel free to correct me if I'm wrong on this, typically things that do come in after the agenda setting deadline on the Wednesday prior to the board meeting are considered for the next board meeting's agenda. So understanding that things with relation to a specific item on the agenda tonight are certainly relevant. The board has received those. They're just not on a public agenda at this point. Staff, can you just help? Are these things that typically we would put, if it came after the deadline on Wednesday, that we would typically put on the next agenda? I just don't want to go down a rabbit hole of starting to pull things in after the agenda has been set and setting a bit of a challenging precedent. And maybe I'm wrong, and if I am, please let me know. Secretary Treasurer Morris.
That generally is our cutoff date, is the agenda attachment date of Wednesday. And then you are correct, everything after publishing date or after the Wednesday date goes on the following month's correspondence.
So Nicole, would it be okay if we just continued with that practice? Anything prior to the 9th that isn't on here, I think is reasonable. The QP 382 letter for sure.
Yeah.
Would that be okay?
Yeah. And then there's also the letter from Boker Creek, and I just want to double check that did come out on the 11th, so that was after the deadline. Yeah, I guess really what I'm concerned about is that we've got quite a lot of correspondence that has come in over the last few days, that because we've got an item on our agenda that it's relevant to, that what I'm suggesting is that we take the time to at least include it in our pack-up to acknowledge it when it's relevant to the discussion on the agenda. But I appreciate that it's not always easy to do that, or that it may not even be advisable in this context. But at the very least, if the board would support the addition of the letter from QP from the 7th of March, then that would be something and that I would appreciate.
I think we can. I don't have an issue. Trustees, is there an issue with that one? I think Jordan, go ahead.
Just to clarify, this is the letter that we received today that had been stuck in junk mail, or is there a separate letter? This is from 382.
That's right. Yeah, it's about the daytime
Okay.
custodial services. Yeah,
Yeah, that was on
Okay,
the 7th.
it's dated the 7th, but we did just receive it.
correct.
Just making sure there aren't two letters, in which case I am.
No.
No.
That's
Yeah, and thanks, Nicole. I really do appreciate the challenge with receiving items after the deadline for items that are on an agenda. I believe our past practice and process has been to put those forward, but certainly anyone who's listening, because it's not on the agenda tonight, it doesn't mean the board and trustees haven't received that and reviewed it and read it and gone through it. Our past practice and process is anything that is received after agenda setting on Wednesdays will be put forward to the following agenda, just because it's more workable for staff to move forward in that manner. Otherwise, we're consistently adding new things, and it takes a bit of work. Nicole, is that okay? So we can do the QP 382 letter and you're satisfied?
Yeah, no, I accept it.
Okay.
Past practice is that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll add under B6 the QP 382 letter. Trustee Whitaker, you were next.
Yeah, I just want to add a trustee report, please.
Okay, so let's add under trustee report C2A, Trustee Whitaker's report. And please do remind me if I go past that. I'll try to remember. Any other amendments to the agenda? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call the question on the agenda. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thank you, everybody. Now we have 3 sets of minutes, and I do have a comment to make on C. So I do want to separate that one. Can we move A and B together? Do trustees have an issue with that? Okay, Nicole, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just one minor amendment.
Okay, sorry. Before we jump down, let's move it. Let's move them individually then. Yeah.
So on the 23rd, or sorry,
Okay.
22nd of Feb.
22nd. Okay, perfect. So we'll go with the first one. That the February 2020. There's going to be a lot of twos in this one. February 22nd, 2022 special board budget minutes be approved. Can I have a motion to approve, please? Moved by Jordan, seconded by Elaine. Okay, and now Nicole, over to you for your amendment.
Yeah, so just a minor amendment that's just get the item number C, sorry, 8A2, and that's on page 7 of the packet for ease of reference. And just adding after the word, or in the description. So it moved by, it says moved by at the top of the page, Trustee Duncan, seconded by Trustee Whitaker. So I'm suggesting amendment to that line below there. So it would read instead, add a motion to the agenda at C1, new business, letter to community regarding suspension of 2 trustees.
Yes. Okay. I think that is in order. Yeah. Very good. Okay, so that one is there. Any other amendments for the 22nd? Trustee Whitaker, please.
Thank you. So also under A2, I would like to add that it should say Trustee Whitaker asked for clarification of the authority used by the board to suspend Trustees McNally and Painter as announced in the media release of February 11th.
Okay, let me just go there quickly. Okay, we can add that there. Thank you. Any other amendments to the minutes from the 22nd? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call a question on the approval of February 22nd minutes. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. Okay, thank you, everybody. We'll go to February 23rd. Can I have a motion to approve those minutes from the 23rd, please? Moved by Elaine, seconded by Nicole, or is that a question, Nicole? Just want to second?
Oh,
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Any questions, discussions, or amendments to the 23rd? Okay, seeing and hearing none, I will call the question on that one. All those in favor of approving the minutes from the 23rd, please signify. And that, Jordan, sorry, just checking your vote on. Yeah, okay, perfect. That is unanimous. Thank you, everybody. Now, regarding the February 28th minutes, because of the short turnaround time from the 28th, literally 2 weeks later to today, the questions that were asked at the end of that meeting in question period have not been updated to these minutes. So what we could do tonight with this one is we could refer to the next meeting of the board so they are updated, or we could move them tonight and wait for them to be updated for us to receive those updates. They'll be made by staff at the back end. So I'm open to what trustees would like to do with this. I think referring is fine. I think passing and letting staff update is also fine because they're questions that are being answered. They're not motions. So over to Nicole. Go ahead, Nicole.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thanks for that. That was one of my amendments to the minutes, so that saves me some time. I just was going to suggest, so just to clarify, I guess what's missing is not the questions, but rather the answers to the questions. Is that right?
I believe that is correct. Yeah. So that section around question period is what's missing from these. So staff just haven't had time to turn that around yet.
Yeah. So I noted that the answers to the questions were not included. And I suppose we could address it by simply making the other amendments to the minutes, and then maybe having it included. So if we pass the minutes subject to those answers being included under question period, we could then maybe, just so that our public sees the updated minutes, we could include them in our pack-up for next time with the answers to the question period questions.
I think that sounds very reasonable. Do trustees have any concerns around that? Okay, I think that sounds good. So first, can I get a mover for the minutes from the 28th? Moved by Tom, seconded by Nicole. And then do we have an amendment, or we want to just leave this as is? Yes, Nicole, over to you.
Yeah, thanks again. Yeah, just an amendment under C2A. So this is on page 18 of the pack-up for folks that want to go there. So right now it reads, Trustee Duncan provided a verbal report relative to the suspension of 2 trustees. And my amendment is that Trustee Duncan provided a verbal report relative to the current board culture, how to resolve conflicts and rebuild trust.
Okay. So relative to current board culture, how to resolve conflicts and preserve trust. Rebuild trust. Thank you. Yeah. Rebuild. Yeah. That's the
I just wanted to make sure that it was clear what my report was about. Yeah, thanks.
Sure. Okay. So that is there. Trustee Whitaker, I believe you had an amendment as well.
Yeah, so as well, C2B. I would like that amended to read, Trustee Whitaker asked questions in regard to the legal case cited in the chair's letter to the public dated February 24th, and also provided information on free parent resources on many concerns and issues for parents at familysmart.ca.
Okay, that is a lot there. Do you have that written down by chance, Trustee Whitaker, and you can send it to staff so they can just pick that up easily?
Yeah, I'll type it in after. Sorry, it is written but not typed.
No, sure, written and not typed. Sure, thank you. Elaine? Yeah, Elaine, go ahead.
Oh, just with reference to that, is that not why with reference to that last amendment, is that not why we asked for reports to be in writing, so we don't have to add what the reports were about for trustee reports? I thought that
typically yes, but I believe, yeah, I think these were both reports that were added on the floor as verbals. So I think that was what happened with these. So they weren't provided in written previously, and verbals are typically allowed at board meetings.
Okay, just for future, sometimes the trustee reports are very lengthy with a lot of information in them. So I would just ask my colleagues that if they are able to submit ahead of time, it's very much appreciated.
Thanks, Elaine. Appreciate that. Okay, any further amendments to the February 28th minutes? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you, everybody. Any business arising from the minutes? We don't have a student achievement or district presentations tonight, so we're going to go into community presentations. These are 5-minute presentations. Each person will have 5 minutes. I will time them. So we will first invite in Ian Graham, proposed land disposal at Lansdowne Middle School South. Please invite Ian in.
Evening, Chair. I do not see an Ian Graham, but I have messaged the waiting list participants to ensure that their display name is the name we're expecting to present.
Okay, thanks.
I'm just waiting to see if one of the participants is Ian Graham.
Okay, thanks. We can reserve Ian's spot. Is Soren Heinrich available, Andy? If so, we can let Soren in.
I do not see Soren either in the wait room.
Okay, do we have Lisa Timmons, President, Camosun Community Association?
We do.
Okay.
Bring Lisa in now.
Please admit Lisa in. Thank you. Hi, Lisa. Welcome to the Board of Education meeting for this evening. And thank you for coming to present to the board. You have 5 minutes. I won't interrupt you during your presentation, but I'll let you know when your 5 minutes up so you can wrap up that final sentence, however that goes. So did you have a presentation tonight, or were you just going to be speaking with us?
Just be speaking tonight.
All right, Lisa, then I will start your 5 minutes now. You may proceed.
That's great. Thank you so much. Thank you all for joining in. For those that might be seeing in from the community, thank you for participating. I come here today because of my interest in this community and my desire to defend this parcel of land to SD61 Lansdowne Middle School South on the grounds that selling it is inconsistent with the community's vision for the future of its watershed and for the health and well-being of those that live here now and long into the future. With over 1,194 signatures on a petition against this sale, say no to selling our precious land and stream, and over 95 comments, the message is clear from the community: do not sell this land. Boker Creek once flowed freely, but over the course of 200 years, this creek has been buried and abused in the name of progress. It was for the best, they said. The creek was buried alive and only fragments of it allowed to see light. Small portions left open, like this section, being considered for disposal. Most of the creek has been sealed underground, ravaged by culverting and pollutants, and slowly the creek has died. The salmon run no more, but there is hope. Years of work, over 20 years of work, an agency have toiled with the goal to bring light and life back to the creek through daylighting and remediation. The work that is done on the creek at Oak Bay High School should be a model for all. It can be done, and it will be done. And I want to remind you, this is one of a few areas left for good floodplain management as identified by experts. It's here, and UVic and the experts say we need it all to mitigate flood risk. We're in a climate emergency. A week ago, the International Government Panel on Climate Change released a report warning of climate breakdown acceleration. It simply means the rains are going to get much worse than our best projections. And we need to be prepared. We need to be careful and prudent and responsible. Civil lawsuits are real and well documented when it comes to floodplains. How is it that possible that you SD61 trustees are put in a position to make land use decisions of such magnitude when you may not have that technical expertise? Public lands in our urban core are increasingly precious, and Camosun's urban green space is dwindling, and Saanich knows it. Public lands and urban cores are on track to become even more scarce and unaffordable, and the housing density coming will be higher as local developers and our current mayor tell us it's not economically feasible to build anything less than 6 stories. Pocket parks aren't going to cut it. We have a full duty of care to ensure that public access to parks and green space is here for our children that come after us, regardless of their social economic status. If we don't hang on to the public lands we have, they'll be gone forever. In 2007, the school district told this community the school was surplus land and tried to sell it. How wrong they were. The school is home to 6th grade students from grade Lansdowne North. Once again, the SD60 tells this community to sell this as surplus land. While Oaklands is bursting and over capacity, will continue. While adjacent schools are adding portables after portables to their school playing fields, the province has recently expanded the school mandate to include childcare. Our community is at the center of 3 major growth nodes for development, and they say this is surplus land. I say the disposal of school property is short-sighted. Defend public education. Don't allow our schools to become so overcrowded that teachers struggle to teach and kids struggle to learn, making private school more appealing for parents that have the means. Finally, respect urban planners around the world are espousing that nature must be at the heart of our community and our cities. We need to put value on the natural capital of communities, particularly that which is paid for by the public, not pave it and build on it. We have seen here and across the province and country, dense development leads to fragmented and sparse natural landscapes over time. We need careful planning. This land disposal sits with you, the trustees of SD61. You make the final call, and I don't envy you. We learned last week that you have a deficit of 7.2 million. It's clear that public education is not adequately funded by the province, and that selling off land is a short-term way to manage budgets across the province. What a sad state. But be mindful of your decision if past behavior is barometer. In 2013, the BC Liberals started selling surplus land to raise revenue over a 6-year period. Over 50 schools were sold, and the Expo in the Vancouver Sun by Laurie Colbert in 2019 was shocking. It was highly criticized later by the BC NDP as being reckless and short-sighted. I hope our government of the day isn't repeating those same mistakes. To all of you here and those that hold the levers of power, W. Clement Stott wrote, "Have the courage to say no, have the courage to face the truth, do the right thing because it is right. These are the magic keys to living your life with integrity. Please say no to this land disposal. Imagine what we could do if we partnered with the school district to raise and create a massive fundraising campaign for public education to help restore our faith in school board governance. You've got a donation button on your website. My God, what if we partnered on this to help you raise the funds that you need? You've been put in a terrible situation. Thank you."
Thank you, Lisa, and you were right on time. I appreciate that very much. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
I believe Ian Graham is here now, so can we please admit Ian? Good evening, Ian, and welcome to the Board of Education meeting, and thank you for coming to present to us tonight. You have a 5-minute window. I won't be interrupting you during that time. I will let you know when your time is up so you can wrap up your thoughts or finish your piece. Just want to make sure first that you can hear us or that you are able to unmute so you can give us your presentation. Hello, Ian. Are you with us? Andy, do we have another Ian in the waiting room, or is this possibly his only login so far?
The only login, I believe. Yeah.
Okay. Ian, we'll try one more time. Are you with us? Okay, Andy, we'll just hang tight and see if we can't resolve this issue with Ian. Has Soren come back into the waiting room? And if not, we can move on to Peter Haddon.
Peter Haddon is available, so we'll let Peter into the meeting.
Thank you, Andy. Hi, Peter, and welcome. Thanks for coming to the Board of Education meeting this evening. We appreciate you. Oh, I see Ian is here now. Okay, so before we jump into Peter, I see Ian is available. Ian, can you hear us? We've brought Peter in, but if you're here, I want to allow you an opportunity to present. Can you hear me? Oh, perhaps not. The joy of technology, everybody. This is the challenge. Okay, Andy, let's try to bring Peter back in. We'll let Ian hang on. I'll just go through to Peter, and we'll see if Ian can work out his technical challenges. So we'll just let Peter stay in the room, and we'll just move forward with his presentation. Peter, are you there with us? Can you go off mute, and we can see if you're there? Peter Haddon. This is Ryan Painter, Chair of the Board of Education, just checking in to see if you are there. Appears to not be there. We'll try a third time. Oh, Peter, I see you've gone off mute. Are you there?
Yeah.
Okay, Peter, I just want to make sure, are you listening on YouTube at the same time? Because there is a delay if you're listening on YouTube. Peter, are you with us? All right, stand by, folks. We're just trying to resolve some. Oh, hi, Peter. Are you with us?
Good evening.
There we go. Hi, Peter.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm glad we got that fixed.
Yes.
All right. So as per usual, you have 5 minutes. I won't interrupt. I'll let you know when your 5 minutes are up, and you can wrap up your final thought and your sentence. So Peter, thank you. Oh, sorry. Did you have a presentation, or were you just speaking with us this evening?
I'm just going to speak. I'll speak for
perfect.
I'll speak for just over 3 minutes. All good.
Hi, Susan.
Yeah.
All right. So Peter, it is 5 minutes, and they start right now.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Peter Haddon. I and other members of the community attended the district budget meeting on March 10th. It was gratifying to meet trustees, staff, and other members of the community face to face. Your effort to bring the community to a budget planning process is commendable, and it leads to a sense of teamwork with the district, so thank you. We found it energizing to work collaboratively in a period when we are struggling through a number of challenging and divisive issues. The pandemic has made communication difficult and has indeed contributed to the financial shortfalls that are now faced by the district. And we look forward to being invited to further meetings to better understand the issues faced by the district as parents and grandparents of children in the school system. As members of the community, we are your advocates. We are a source of future trustees. We're a source of funding, and we bring a breadth of experience, ideas, energy, and commitment to our children's education. And I am confident that a stronger district collaboration with the community can bring solutions that no one group can achieve on their own. I have 5 suggestions as to how we might move forward. And firstly, with respect to the district, the school board has a number of serious issues. We are dealing with a budget crisis, and that's likely faced by many other school districts in BC. And secondly, I personally believe it's important to keep building a commitment to collaboration. We are, there's a prospect that we could have a second community meeting to continue this work. Thirdly, recent events have shaken your relationship with teachers, parent advisory committee, First Nations, and others, and we must find ways to rebuild these relationships. Fourthly, if we are to collaborate, the district must invest in organizational resources to support teamwork. We need your leadership, as this is not something that we can do in isolation. And lastly, the Ministry of Education sets the rules, but they also recognize the need for flexibility and dialogue. And as an informed community, we can be a powerful advocate to MLAs, to the ministry, and to local governments on your behalf. Collaboration is the means to educate and inform the community so we can participate more actively in strategizing, in planning, and indeed supporting your work as trustees. I'm sure there are many community partners who will join a refocused and re-energized collaborative effort. We are experienced working with each other, with local and regional government, with business, with universities and Camosun. We must find ways to work together for our children and for future generations. And finally, please consider stepping back from the crucial decision before you tonight concerning Lansdowne South under item B. This will contribute to reestablishing respectful and collaborative relations to help solve budget and spending issues without selling this important property. So thank you for your time. Good night.
Thank you very much, Peter. Thank you for coming to present to us tonight, and we appreciate your input to the board and the district and your thoughts. Thank you very much. Ian Graham, I'm checking in to see if we have contact with you. Can you hear us?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Excellent. Thank you, Ian. Appreciate that you hung on as we work out our mutual technology challenges. So do you have a presentation for us this evening?
No, just some remarks, and yeah.
All right. Yeah. So I will. Same process goes. You have 5 minutes. I'll let you know at the end of the 5, and you can wrap up your thought at that point. So your 5 minutes starts now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and trustees, for the opportunity. Ian Graham, I'm a director of the Friends of Boker Creek Society, and the society submitted a series of joint letters going back to November now, covering a range of interests. And what I want to focus on today is the 16-page letter that we and the Camosun Community Association sent you on Friday, and it focuses on legal and procedural issues. And I want to request that the letter be included in the public record. So the letter was prepared with the assistance of legal counsel and provides an analysis of the district's current process to dispose of the Lansdowne South property. I'll let the letter speak for itself, but to quickly summarize, it's our view that the district has disposed of the lands without lawful authority. You have entered into a purchase and sale agreement, a contract, without following the legally mandated process. It's our view that you have been and are acting unlawfully, and the only way that you can remedy this is to cancel or otherwise just withdraw from the sale agreement. And I quickly want to highlight 2 or 3 points. Firstly, what disposal and what it means. The disposal of property is permitted under very prescribed circumstances in the Minister's Disposal of Lands Improvements Order. And the order, it's made under the authority of the School Act, and it states that boards, paraphrasing, boards must not dispose of land or improvements by sale unless such disposal is approved by the minister. And so to understand what it means for the district to dispose of land, you have to consider the entirety of the order, including the definition of dispose. And that's right up there in section 1 of the order. And it points to the Interpretation Act, which defines dispose as not just to sell, lease, assign, grant, etc., but also agreeing to do those things. So it's our view that signing an agreement for purchase and sale would be considered disposing of the property. This is not a technicality or a gotcha moment. It's right there in section 1 of the order. And our view is supported by the province's disposal policy and the ministry's required information checklist. And I quote, "The Board of Education must obtain ministerial approval prior to pursuing the disposal." So it's our view that signing of the sale agreement was unlawful. And the district is not permitted to continue to pursue the legal transfer of the property in any way until this is remedied. The second point I'd like to make is around consultation. We've raised this before, but consultation, it must occur prior to a decision. Otherwise, the consultation is not entered into in good faith. And so meaningful consideration of issues, concerns, and viewpoints raised during a so-called consultation is really of no consequence to a decision maker if it's solicited after the decision is made. Our view is that you made a significant decision on September 27th when you signed a purchase agreement and a purchase and sale agreement, a contract, a decision which you then announced over 2 weeks later. Your so-called consultation process has really just been limited to one of the conditions of that sale agreement, the disposal bylaw. And again, I'd bring you back to the ministry's disposal process that states that boards of education must engage in broad consultation and enhanced planning and other regarding underutilized buildings and properties owned by boards prior to property disposition. So in failing to conduct any consultation prior to entering into the sale agreement, let alone meaningful consultation, you fail to meet your legal requirements that you are required to follow. The third thing is, it's very clear from the wording in the disposal bylaw and the agenda package has not changed since the first and second reading. However, the subject matter of the bylaw has undergone significant alteration and modification, something very different from what was presented to the school board back in January. So we think that proceeding to a third reading of the bylaw without providing the opportunity for first and second reading on that new proposal, that substantially modified proposal, is procedurally unfair and also contrary to your own policies. So in closing, I just want to say, it's our view that the district has been and are acting unlawfully. And the only way you can remedy this is to cancel and otherwise withdraw from the agreement and restart this process following the legally mandated process. Again, I want to state that hospice is a wonderful organization, amazing staff, both parents have transitioned there. This is not about hospice. It's about your responsibility as trustees. It's about laws, policy, and how trustees and staff make decisions. As a public institution in charge
Ian, sorry, your time's up. If you could just wrap your last thought, that'd be great.
Yeah, I thought you were going to give me a 1 minute there. Our process is creating unnecessary division and resentment. Even at this late date, you have a leadership opportunity by halting this divisive process and starting a new process that brings the community of interest together. Please do the right thing. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. Appreciate that. And just on the 5 minute piece, just because folks have mentioned it, we had some concerns from folks before saying me interrupting at 1 minute through interrupted people's flow. So I'm trying to manage the expectations of presenters to support them in the ways that I best can. But thanks, Ian. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Can we please bring in Soren next, Andy? Folks have mentioned it. We had some concerns. Hi, Soren. 1 minute through, interrupted people's flow. So, Soren, so I think, are you still playing the YouTube behind you, Soren? I thought I could hear an echo.
Yeah, I just switched it off again.
Okay, thank you. So did you have a presentation for us tonight, or were you just going to be speaking?
I'm just going to be speaking.
All right, so as usual, 5 minutes. Again, just to confirm, I won't interrupt you during your 5 minutes. I will let you know when your 5 minutes are up so that you can kind of wrap your thought on your last sentence. So Soren, your 5 minutes start now.
Thank you, Chair Painter. I'm Soren Henricha, Director of the Friends of Boker Creek Society. So at the public budget meeting last Thursday, the Secretary Treasurer welcomed the public to the workshop, and she began with, "I have bias, we all have bias," and I really like that. I'm going to use that. That's just wonderful. So the task was to balance the 2022-23 budget, and Secretary Treasurer said, "You have a list of asks at your table. There's a $7 million deficit and a $800,000 surplus to work with, and keep in mind the $1 to $2 million risk factor." And then with a twinkle in her eye, she said, "It's a big puzzle, so let's get started to see if we can come up with a balanced budget." So it was wonderful. It was a wonderful evening. And at the workshop table, I met Trustee Leonard, who said, "Soren, you're not just here for Boker Creek, are you? Why are you here tonight?" And I replied, "To learn." And what I learned was, when balancing the budget, the annual budget, the school district is guided by core values, a mission and a vision, and 3 strategic plan goals, and a new FESL, a framework for enhanced student learning, which is a shared commitment to improve student success and equity of learning outcomes for every student in British Columbia. And the challenges include aging infrastructure and climate action initiatives. And I learned that provincial grants are tied to enrollment. And most of all, I learned that balancing the budget is extremely difficult. And I learned that 75% of land sale proceeds go into a ministry restricted fund, and only 25% of the sale proceeds go into local capital reserve. So in case of the topic at vote tonight, it would mean that only $625,000 from the $2.5 million sale price would go into the local capital reserve. And I welcome to be corrected on that, but that's what I understand. And I also learned that it is the board's sole responsibility to determine the options to balance the budget. And in this process, SD61 learned that there are values and guiding principles behind those decisions, that you welcome more voices and opportunities and don't just come with one option, and something called co-creation, which I'd like to learn more about, and also timeline issues, making decisions earlier. So tonight, I'd just like to conclude with a few thoughts from Jane Jacobs in her book, The Death and Life of Great American Cities. And Jane Jacobs says, money has its limitations. It cannot buy inherent success for cities where the conditions for inherent success are lacking and where the use of the money fails to supply them. Furthermore, money can only do ultimate harm where it destroys the conditions needed for inherent success. On the other hand, by helping to supply the requirements needed, money can help build inherent success in cities. Indeed, it is indispensable. For these reasons, money is a powerful force, both for city decline and for city regeneration. But it must be understood that it is not the mere availability of money, but how it is available and for what that is all important. Three principal kinds of money finance and shape most of the changes that occur in residential and business properties in cities. Because this money is so powerful an instrument, as it goes, so go our cities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Soren, and thank you for your contributions this evening. I'm glad that you were able to come to the budget presentation and glean so much from that. And thank you, of course, for your continued contributions around the issue we're discussing tonight. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chair Painter.
So we'll now go to Bonnie Smith. Good evening, Bonnie. Thank you for coming tonight to present to the Board of Education. You have 5 minutes to present. I won't interrupt you during your presentation. When you do hit that 5-minute mark, I'll be sure to let you know so you can wrap up your final thought on what you're discussing tonight. Bonnie, over to you. Your 5 minutes starts now.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. I'm speaking in favor of working towards equitable music education. I'm going to present examples of how stakeholders working together in the past were able to make things a little better than before by keeping their focus not on what we should cut, but on how to make good things happen. Example 1, establishing island ukuleles as a course for high school music credit. This followed the wishes of parents and students who wanted island ukuleles to be granted credit status for high school music. To receive credit for a provincial exam in that subject, island ukuleles had to be offered as a credit course taught by a secondary school music teacher. When the course outline was approved by the provincial government, 1 block was added to Mrs. Horwood's teaching assignment at Oak Bay, meeting in the evening to serve students from all catchment areas. Example 2, the switch to the middle school configuration. The switch to middle schools enabled the district to fund a per school minimum of 1 class per grade for band and 2 levels each per school for choral and for strings music. Schools with larger populations or enrollments in music were able to receive additional blocks. Secondary music programs then benefited from the larger number of students registering to the high school programs when they entered there. Music education graduates from Canadian and American universities are qualified as music teachers and may teach in all 3 of these performance areas, allowing music teachers to work with their administrators at each middle school to move their specific teaching assignments around a bit in response to changing enrollment numbers and the individual preferences expressed by the current student populations. This requires time and will on the part of administrators and teachers to make this happen. Some music teachers have qualifications in teaching another subject, which they may be willing to use to expand their FTE at their current school, which would also increase their contact with colleagues and with students. Exploratories are not part of district music staffing, but are included in block funding and might include an indigenous drumming and dance exploratory at middle schools, for example, providing opportunities for collaboration with the Indigenous Education Department and include local context, which is important. Students with skill could become a regular contributor to events within the school once they've completed their exploratory course or courses. Example 3, working with provincial legislation related to prep time and to class size. Each of these have provided unique challenges to district budgets. Prep time has increased the equitability of music education at the elementary level by allowing music to be offered as prep. There are still some challenges with the number of minutes allocated for kindergarten prep, but each year creative solutions are being worked out within each school. Regarding class size, the initial limits were too small to adequately support the needs of a concert band, which has a diverse instrumentation, or a large concert choir singing in 8 parts. Administrators, teachers, and the BCTF worked together to solve the problem. At that time, teachers wishing to teach larger classes signed a release to the district, agreeing to an increase in class size up to a specified limit. Example 4, creating the Coopersmith Music Library Collection. Larger music classes require more supplies, and not all schools have adequate funds or storage space to support this. Music teachers realize that this can cause stress for the budget. Therefore, the CSMLC allows schools to share orchestral strings or choral music that they purchase without having to track the location of the music and without using school square footage to store the music until wishing to use it again. This increases equitability as each school in the district has an account for borrowing privileges and pays only for lost and damaged copies. All music new to the library is donated. Minimal annual support from district funds is required to support the CSMLC, as both donated funds in support of extra clerical hours and music teacher volunteers assisting with inventories and rental are part of the regular operation. The
Bonnie,
CSM
sorry, just to let you know, we've hit our 5 minutes, so
Okay.
you can wrap your final thoughts. That'd be
All
great.
right. In closing, I'd like to thank community members for the anonymous donation of $20,000 last August via the Victoria Foundation. These funds are held by the CSMLC and are being used as requested for supplies in support of district music programs at all levels. Donations in previous years have purchased class sets of ukuleles or guitars. I hope these examples demonstrate for you that budget challenges in the past were overcome by the will to work collaboratively. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. And looks like we caught you just before the lights went out, so perfect timing. And also, just let me thank you on behalf of the board for your years of service in music education in the district. Thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, and we have one more presenter, Kevin Harder. So if we can bring Kevin in. Kevin, welcome. Happy to have you here with us this evening. Did you have a presentation for us?
Yes, I do. And I believe you have that.
All right, we'll
if I'm
cue
not
that
mistaken.
up.
Thank you so much.
And
good
so the
evening.
usual rules apply. You have 5 minutes. I won't interrupt you during your presentation. When your 5 minutes are up, I will let you know so you can wrap your final thought for us. So Kevin, I see Andy has us queued up. So your 5 minutes starts now.
Good evening, all, and thank you for this opportunity to discuss our proposal with you tonight. Next slide, please. In October of last year, Victoria Hospice entered into an agreement with the Greater Victoria School Board to potentially purchase 1.9 acres of land. Since then, we have met with a number of stakeholders, including the school district, the District of Saanich, the Boker Creek Initiative, and the Friends of Boker Creek while working on our proposal. We want to assure you and them that ongoing discussions will be available to further discuss this proposal and future plans. Next slide, please. Over the last months, we have hired a registered professional biologist, a stormwater engineer, and a landscape architect. We have stated our commitment to remediate this section of Boker Creek. We are now proposing that the property line be on the west side of the creek, resulting in an estimated total land size for purchase of 1.28 acres. This will benefit the school district as it means an increase in their land size from 6.1 to 6.7 acres and assures access to the creek. Next slide, please. As you know, the Boker Creek Initiative Blueprint defines sections of the creek by reaches, and this project is located within Reach 9. We are committed to upgrading and restoring this section of Boker Creek. A reach action item number 9-4 in the blueprint states, widen the creek corridor within the current alignment, create a more gently sloping west bank and increase the width of the riparian area, remove invasive species and plant native species, and create a greenway along the creek in the current right-of-way alignment. Victoria Hospice proposes to meet these objectives by widening the creek to 4 meters with more gently sloping sides, meander the creek, and provide an area in the northeast side of the creek for an outdoor classroom. Create a bench on the east side by lowering the ground over the CRD right-of-way by 1 to 1.5 meters, which will increase the cross-section area of the channel for major runoff events and provide the opportunity of sloping the east side of the channel more gently. I want to address the concerns brought forward around flooding on this land. The 2007 Master Drainage Plan indicates that this property conveys all storms up to the 100-year, 15-minute duration event. Our proposal will also increase the floodplain storage volume by approximately 4.9 million liters over the existing condition. Next slide, please. We will also consider several types of low impact development stormwater management features to treat and detain runoff from the project, including permeable paving and absorptive landscaping such as rain garden and vegetative swales. Our proposal will remove invasive species and replace with native riparian plantings as specified by the project environmental consultant. We will create a public access greenway with a multi-use trail per reach action item number 9.2. We will replace and likely relocate the fallen fence further from the creek per reach action item number 9.3. Furthermore, in order to reduce the footprint on this property, we are exploring options for underground parking. Next slide, please. To date, no remediation of Reach 9 of Boker Creek has occurred. Our vision for the riparian area habitat creation will bring the community together, including students and neighbors with a natural environment to enjoy and learn in and learn from. It will turn a currently hazardous space into a safer natural habitat for wildlife and people. Next slide, please. Victoria Hospice and Boker Creek are both valuable assets that are essential to the health and well-being of our community. We are committed to restoring and protecting the creek and will undertake the restoration work in a timely manner. Both the school board and Victoria Hospice have missions centered around nurturing the well-being of the individuals we support. This property could bring our community together, including the students and residents in this area with a natural environment to enjoy and learn. We can turn a currently hazardous space into safer natural habitat for wildlife and people to enjoy. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Appreciate your presentation this evening. Trustees, that is our presentations for tonight. We will now move on to B, correspondence. Trustees, you have correspondence, including the added correspondence for tonight, the letter from QP 382, which was added to B6. Is there any correspondence here trustees wish to discuss? Seeing and hearing none, we'll move on to trustee reports. Chair's report. There is no report for the chair this month. We'll move to BC STA Climate Change Survey. This is a survey that came through. Yes, Secretary Treasurer Morris, go ahead.
Sorry, ignore me. My apologies.
That's okay. This is a survey that came through the BC School Trustees Association for boards of education to fill. My sense of this was that given that we have a climate action committee, I felt it would be appropriate to offer the opportunity for that committee to fill out and return this survey as part of their work. So my motion would be, or the motion that I've recommended here would be that the Board of Education of School District number 61 Greater Victoria refer the BC STA Climate Action Survey to the Climate Action Committee. Do I have a mover for that motion? Moved by Elaine. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Jordan. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you, everybody. I will be sure to forward that. Actually, I think staff already has this, so it will be brought forward to the Climate Action Committee for review and submission. C, we have the annual work plan, April 2022 for your review. This lays out our plans for April 2022, which of course we know includes the budget. Trustee Whitaker, please go ahead.
Thank you. When I review the annual work plan, I note that it says under external compliance and accountability, appoint auditor through the audit committee and approve terms of engagement. And I was just confused by that, and please clarify if I am wrong, but my understanding was that the audit committee makes the recommendation and that the board does the final approval, not that the committee actually approves. Am I wrong? Is it just a short form in the annual report? Or?
Thank you, Trustee Whitaker. I'll put that over to Secretary Treasurer Morris.
Yes, it may be that the work plan is out of sync with the board and the committee responsibilities. So I believe the recommendation for the auditor does come to the board from the audit committee.
Thank you.
And maybe Katrina Stride would like to offer any further clarification.
Hi, yeah, usually is recommended and discussed at audit committee and then comes to the board. I believe we've already done that though for, because it went out to RFP in 2021.
Yes, I recall that as well. And I recall at audit committee, actually, I think we went through that and already determined KPMG. In fact, I think there were some discussions around that when it came to the board table around repeating using KPMG again. Trustee Whitaker, I'm sorry, I saw your hand up, but sorry, I'm Secretary.
I was just going to clarify that was my understanding. That's why I was confused when I saw it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Secretary Treasurer Morris, you've got your hand up.
We'll just double check policy to see that it's not an annual endorsement from the board, Trustee Whitaker. Sometimes boards do that each year, even though they've gone out for RFP. So we'll double check the policy.
Thanks, staff, and thanks, Trustee Whitaker, for the question. C2, Trustee Reports. Trustee Whitaker, your report. I won't time you. Go ahead.
Hang on, I have to unmute before I go to the Word document. Okay, thank you very much. And my apologies, I was not able to write this and get this in on time just because we've had a meeting every night. But I am just so grateful and honored to update the board on the continuation of the Rogers School Indigenous Community Education Series. Due to COVID restrictions on January 10th, the date was postponed until March 7th, but this certainly did not diminish the enthusiasm to listen, to learn, and to laugh together. Everyone, students, parents, community members, and elders participated in a good way with good energy in the making of drums to be gifted back to the community. And it was such an honor to be included in this work with amazing people. I want to say a special thank you to Elder Marianne Thomas, whose words have carried and calmed me over the past week, and to John Harris, District Elders and Indigenous Knowledge Facilitator, for sharing his learning with us, and especially for making a drum with me. He made it so easy for me, so thank you very much. I also want to thank the Rogers School Vice Principal Jen Farr and teacher Colette Cristante and Staff Sergeant Daryl Underworld for bringing us together to do this work and to learn together. It's just not possible to thank and mention everyone who participated in the day, but I really wish I could. I want to thank each and every one for sharing their day, their wisdom, and their good intentions with me. I left feeling more connected to my community and to everyone in the room. And I'd even say I felt like I made some new friends, and I'm truly grateful for being included in this learning, and it has filled my heart. So just thank you very much to everyone at Rogers doing this work.
Thanks, Trustee Whitaker. It sounds like a truly beneficial, powerful experience. We will go to board committee reports. D1, Combined Education Policy and Directions Committee and Operations Policy and Planning Committee. The draft minutes from the March 7th, 2022 combined meeting are there for information only. We'll now go to E, District Leadership Team Reports, Interim Superintendent's Report. Interim Superintendent Deb Winton, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair Painter. I'll draw your attention to pages 96 and 97 in the packet. I'll head right back down to the gratitude section and highlight three areas. One is we know that musical theater is going forward right now in secondary schools. So many thanks to all of the volunteers, including the students who have been performing. It's nice to see people back on the stage. The other is that we've had fall and winter sports occurring. And again, many thanks to the volunteer coaches and officials and parents and student athletes for very successful seasons. And then lastly, which is not listed there, but I do want to reach out and thank Lisa, Marianne, and Beth for the very successful Cedar Hill open house. As Chair Painter mentioned, nice to get back in person and have opportunities to meet with the Cedar Hill community. So thank you, gratitude to many people for a very successful month.
Thanks, Deb. We have a motion that the Board of Education of School District 61 receive the interim superintendent's report as presented. Can I have a mover? Moved by Jordan, seconded by Elaine. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor of receiving the report? That's unanimous. Thank you, trustees. Trustee questions. Trustee Whitaker.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. One, just noting the bylaw before us this evening continues to read the same as the proposal put before the board on January 28th, which is the 1.9. And we have just heard there's a difference to 1.26 now. The motion before us tonight is materially different in size and scope. Would it not be prudent and a better process for us to rewrite the bylaw so it matches the actual terms and conditions of the sale? And is there a risk to not taking the time to vote on a properly written bylaw that actually represents the transaction that's under consideration? And is there risk in voting on the bylaw written for 1.9 acres? I just think that's my first little slew of questions.
So I'm not sure if that is a question for the superintendent's report, noting that we do have that motion coming later in the agenda. I'm wondering,
we were on
Trustee
trustee
Whitaker,
questions.
We are for the superintendent's report. That's the section that we're under right now.
Okay, well, I guess through the chair to the superintendent, I'm just would like to know the answers to those questions. before we vote on the bylaw, because I think it is significant that the bylaw that is being read and has been voted on is for 1.9 acres, and the actual decision before us is not for 1.9 acres, it's for 1.28 acres.
Sure, I appreciate the nature of your question, Trustee Whitaker. I'm just wondering if maybe we could put this to the part of the agenda where this is actually coming, because right now we're discussing the interim superintendent's report, which he's just presented to us. So I'd like to stick to that topic if we could before we go to the motion that you're discussing.
Can I just have a point of clarification? We just voted on the superintendent's report. So have we not moved to trustee questions?
Trustee questions in this section evolve from the superintendent's report. So we have agreed and passed it. But what happens when we come to this point in the board agenda under the interim superintendent's report and the secretary treasurer's report is any questions that flow from those reports that have just been presented to us. So again, I'm not debating the validity of your question. I'm just wondering if we can leave that to the bylaw reading and go to trustee questions emanating from the superintendent's report. Okay, I'll go to Nicole. Sorry, Trustee Whitaker, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just waiting to know when I get to ask my question. I'm sorry, I'm confused.
It was a request from me to you. Can we wait on that question till we get to the bylaw reading? Because that seems to be a reasonable place for that question to come up.
Okay, well, I also have another question.
Okay, go ahead.
And I just thought that we would handle trustee questions at trustee question time, and that the bylaw.
I generally think that.
Okay,
I mean,
so
trustees are welcome to challenge me on this if you'd like. I have no problem with that. My understanding has been typically when we have a superintendent's report and a secretary treasurer's report that we have received and approved, questions that come in that section of the agenda are intended to be any questions that would emanate from those reports. I'm welcome to be challenged on that. Colleagues, this is your meeting, not mine. I'm just simply trying to keep us on process with what I feel we have done previously. Trustee Whitaker, go ahead. What's your next question?
I just think Trustee Duncan had a response to you there before I.
Yep, Nicole, go ahead.
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll endeavor, while Trustee Whitaker asked her next question, I'll endeavor to find the section in our bylaw just to aid us here.
Sure, that would be appreciated, Nicole. Thank you. Trustee Whitaker, over to you.
Okay, so and obviously I have a different understanding of this section. For me, this was a section of that this is the opportunity that trustees can ask questions of any matter of the superintendent as our employer. But anyway, I will continue. So if this is incorrect, and just let me know. Since our last board meeting, we've received notice of litigation against the actions of the board for the suspension of 2 trustees. And I'm aware that litigation is an inherent risk that should be disclosed, even when there is a belief that litigation will be successful. Litigation is always an unknown. It is a risk that the board now has until the court makes a decision. Noting the decision before us this evening, should we be adding a statement of disclosure to our decisions? Something to the effect that the School District 61 Board of Education is currently in litigation, which may put in question the ability of the Board of Education to enter into a legal obligation. Isn't it true that any decision made by this board could be a challenge through a judicial review in the future? So should we do a disclosure? And is it not true that if the verdict that the court decides against this board, that any decision that we make going forward could be challenged by a judicial review?
Sure, thanks, Trustee Whitaker. I believe Secretary Treasurer Kim Morris has an answer to your first question. So we're going to go to Secretary Treasurer Kim Morris to answer that question. Go ahead.
Thank you. So relative to the bylaw having changed, or the not matching exactly what the board is contemplating now with the changes to the proposed plan by Victoria Hospice, our advice is that the change or the difference is not substantial. And that the bylaw that the board did pass does contemplate some changes, and we still have some control over potential future changes. So the original bylaw was worded such that we do have some ability to change as we go, and that's been indicated by the addendums that we've signed to extend the timelines, et cetera.
Okay, thank you, Secretary Treasurer Morris. On the second question, Trustee Whitaker, I know that's going to the interim superintendent. There is a lot of legal questions there. I'm not quite sure if the level of ability to answer that this evening, but I'll go to Superintendent Deb Whitten to see if she has any comments to make.
No, I would need to take that further.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions, Trustee Whitaker?
I guess I would just to follow up with the Secretary Treasurer. I guess my concern is, and I know you've said that it's actually, I'm not really sure what you said, but so I guess I'm looking for more clarification. What is the risk to the board that, I mean, I think it is quite a material difference. It's over half an acre. It's 0.62 of acres in this deal. And it's, when we look at this even if there is remediation done by hospice, there is now future costs to us on this land. I'm not sure where now this drawing sees a lot of work done on our side of the land and the sloping of the land. It just does feel like a very different, it just feels like a different proposal.
Secretary Treasurer Kim Morris for response.
So the advice we've received is that the bylaw difference is not substantial, and that the bylaw does allow for some change that was already prepared by or given readings by the board. We know that the proposed plan is to leave some of the work or most of the work done on our property, but this is subject to the board's approval of the subdivision plan as well as Saanich's approval processes. So our advice is that it's not substantial.
Thanks, Kim. Trustee Whitaker.
So can I just have clarification? Who was this vetted through? That, like, where is this, the advice that we have received coming from that it's not a substantial change?
It's from our legal counsel.
Okay.
Okay, any further questions on the interim or trustee questions under superintendent's report? Any further questions? Nicole.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that there is nothing in our bylaw 9360, the general meetings of the board, that would suggest that trustee questions can only be limited to matters pertaining to the superintendent's reports. So maybe this is something that maybe as a board we can just clarify at another time. But my suggestion to us would be that we allow sort of questions, and the only limitation would be that it's acknowledged that, you know, if staff cannot provide the answer within the meeting and they need to go away and find the answer, then of course that is allowable and understandable.
Sure, and if they're, you know, in the absence of any specificity, it's read it relatively broad as you have, which I appreciate. And if we need to tighten it up, perhaps we'll need to tighten it up in the future, but as it states, we'll carry on. E2, Secretary Treasurer's report, monthly report. Secretary Treasurer Kim Morris, over to you.
Thank you. I just wanted to highlight for the board and the public that the, sorry, I'm just going to get to my notes. Yeah, just a little quick update on budget 22-23. Our budget advisory committee met on March 8th and has added March 16th date to the process. A committee date, and that our thought exchange, our student thought exchange report is posted on our financial page. So you can go check out what students had to say about how they would enjoy learning even more. And as always, the agendas and minutes are on the financial website for public viewing.
Thank you, Secretary Treasurer Morris. We have a recommended motion that the Board of Education of School District 61 receive the Secretary Treasurer's report as presented. Can I have a mover for that motion, please? Moved by Tom, seconded by Jordan. Any discussion on the Secretary Treasurer's report? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor of receipt of the report? And that is unanimous. Thank you, everybody. So we'll go now to B, Lansdowne Middle School South Campus. Before we engage in any debate or questions or discussions, I want to provide staff an opportunity to give us just a reminder of where we are for the public and how we got to where we are tonight. So if I can turn over to Secretary Treasurer Morris, that would be great. Over to you.
Sure. So we had contemplated disposal of the partial Lansdowne South Campus to Victoria Hospice Society, conditional on 3 readings of a disposal bylaw and the Minister of Education's approval. And so we've given 2 readings of the bylaw to date, and tonight the board is here to deliberate on 3rd reading of the bylaw and noting that the minister's approval is still pending.
Thanks, Kim. Before we go into reading and debating, I want to provide an opportunity for any trustees who perhaps have questions on this motion for staff. So, once we get into the motion, we are limited to how much we can say. So I want to give a bit of free flowing here to allow folks to have some questions asked, or pardon me, asked and answered. Nicole, I saw your hand up. I'll go to you first.
Yeah, I just would appreciate some guidance as to when I can move a motion to table the 3rd reading. I want to make sure I'm following proper process as to when to do that.
Sure. So if you wanted, once we move the initial motion, you could then move to table once we have the motion on the floor, which you're absolutely right to do if you would like to do that.
Thank you.
At this point, I'm just wanting to see if we have any questions before we go into that piece of the process. Nicole?
Thanks for that clarification. Yeah, I had a question. So, I appreciate that there's quite a number of complexities around this issue, and that the CEO of Victoria Hospice Society, Mr. Harder, has come to present to us tonight, add a little bit more to the previous presentation that he provided on the 28th of February. I'm wondering if there were any other discussions between our district, Victoria Hospice Society, any members of the Broker Creek Initiative, or the municipality since we last met, and any information that could assist us in our deliberations tonight.
Thanks, Nicole. Kim, over to you.
Yeah, no meetings have occurred between Vic Hospice or the city of, or the district of Saanich or Friends of Boker Creek since we last met. And the only thing that's gone really back and forth is the correspondence to the minister. I understood there was a meeting that may have taken place at that was scheduled to take place at the Creek for Victoria Hospice Society and the Friends of Boker Creek, but that meeting did not occur.
Thank you. Any further questions before we go into debate? Trustee Whitaker, please.
Thank you. I think we were still waiting a response from the City of Victoria as to how this might affect their grant that they just put in. So I'm just wondering if there's any follow-up on that. And I am just confused with the remediation question and what portion is being paid for by hospice and which portion is being paid for by us or somebody else, then be the District of Saanich, and what the ongoing costs will be. So I'm just wondering if there's any follow-up to that.
Thanks, Trustee Whitaker. Kim? Sure,
I'll have to look for the city's response. I thought that we had included that. Perhaps we don't have one, but I can double check. There will be no cost to School District 61 The improvements that are proposed and will be approved in the subdivision plan will be funded by grant writing, and the delta between grant writing and the cost of the remediation will be taken up by Victoria Hospice Society. And I did check with the facilities department in terms of regular maintenance on the Oak Bay portion of the creek and the outdoor amenities there, and they are unable to identify any real costs to the district. We don't do a lot of maintenance on that site at all, if any.
Okay, thank you. Kim, just for those who might not remember, the issue of stormwater detention has come up. I'm wondering if through you, maybe Director of Facilities Chuck Morris can remind us what the opportunities are for the east side of the creek for stormwater management. I believe that there was some discussion, if not last month, the month prior, that there would be potential for us to do some stormwater management on the opposite side of that creek. So I wonder if through you, perhaps Director of Facilities could comment on that.
Sure. Do you want me to start, Chuck, or where is Chuck? Isaiah?
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. So the option for the east side of the creek is, in addition to the sloping of the banks of the creek, are to lower the east side of the creek and to perhaps create a dry pond on the east side that would flood 1 to 2 days each year, if at all, subject to Saanich's approval of that plan, which the subdivision plan would include requesting Saanich's approval of that conceptual plan. There are also BC hydro lands that District of Saanich now owns that could also be used. Chuck, I don't know, did that cover it off?
That could cover it off. There's always an option that requires a lot more discussion about Lansdowne North in that field.
Okay, thank you. Nicole, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, thank you for raising that. I wasn't aware that there were discussions going on about the possibility of a dry pond on either the east side, so the remaining school district land at Lansdowne South or at Lansdowne North. So are we further? I mean, obviously this again is still in the conceptual stage, presumably in terms of possible ways to allow for some further flood mitigation. But it sounds like it would be entirely on our side of the property, and also then potentially Lansdowne North. Or do we understand the extent to which that will impact on our school or educational use of the land, and further what costs would be associated with undertaking any or all of those plans?
Thanks, Nicole. Kim, over to you.
So again, the sloping of the creek, the actual creek remediation of the open daylighted part improves the flow of the creek and some storage as the creek flows. The cost of the remediation to create a dry pond on the east side of the creek or Lansdowne North would be, especially Lansdowne east side of the creek, would be at Victoria Hospice's cost through grant writing and the Delta, as I've mentioned, and in the preliminary subdivision approval that School District 61 would need to approve. And in terms of, sorry, there were 3 parts. Cost, oh, the flooding, as I mentioned, could be 2 days per year, if at all.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions from trustees? And thanks, staff, for answering those questions for us and for the public as well, so we can be informed. Okay, I see no further questions, so we're going to go into third reading. There is a recommended motion. Do I have consent from the board to dispense of reading of the entire motion? Excellent, thank you. So can I have a motion then to move third reading of the bylaw? Moved by Tom, seconded by Elaine. And I've got Angie and then Nicole. Angie, go ahead, and then we'll go to Nicole.
Ooh, I almost started talking without taking myself off mute. Thank you. I wanted to kick things off today because I've had a change of heart. I've written my talking points down because I'm not good at coming up with this stuff on the spot, so your indulgence with me reading. When our staff first brought the hospice's proposal to us back in the fall, asking us to sell them that little triangle of land behind the old Richmond School, it seemed to me like a great idea. I was vaguely aware of the parcel, having biked past it on my way to UVic in what feels like at least 2 lifetimes ago. It seemed like an unloved and unlovely little place that we could sell to a great partner, help them out, and make a little bit of money. And then the emails started coming in, and I learned about the Boker Creek blueprint, and I read it, and I reviewed the plans provided by hospice, and I thought, they're in pretty good alignment. The hospice plans look beautiful. They've been working really hard with us and with Boker Creek to constantly upgrade their plans. It met some of the goals of the Boker Creek blueprint and hospice. I mean, everybody loves hospice. They're an amazing society that's touched many lives, including my own. And I thought our district's never going to have the money to do the work to improve the stream. And it seemed like a good way to hand the land over to somebody who could afford to improve it, which is why I voted in favor of the land sale during the first 2 readings of the bylaw. However, in the time since that vote, the many conversations I've had with community members have changed my mind. One consideration that is top of my mind is equity. I live out in the View Royal Saanich West side of town. My son bikes along the Galloping Goose or Colquitts Creek Trail to get to school. When we bring my daughter to Strawberry Vale, we have to go past the Hastings Flat potato field / floodplain, and we count the ducks and the swans there in the winter. And my kids play in Craigflower Creek all year long. Living in Saanich West, I didn't realize how few of these opportunities were available to children and community members living in Saanich East. From my house, I look east, I see Pacals, otherwise known as Mounts Tommy and Mount Doug. They're standing tall and green, and I think that side of town looks like my side of town. But then having spent time walking through the neighborhoods around Boker Creek, I've discovered that there is actually very little quality green space within walking distance in that community. Another consideration top of my mind is climate change. Extreme weather events require structural changes to the landscape if we are going to weather the weather. And as good as the hospice plans are, I feel they're not quite good enough. That creek needs a floodplain, and having a building on the land is going to prevent that. A third consideration that's really been on my mind is how removed we, being the board, the district, are from that land. It's really easy for us sitting around this virtual table to believe that by selling this frankly unimpressive little triangle of land hospice, that we're doing the right thing. However, our community has spoken very loudly about their passion and plans for this watershed. It's easy for us to say, sure, they're enthusiastic, but where will the money come from? If hospice can do it better than we can, let's let them. But grassroots movements like this are what our country and what our planet needs. We have hundreds of passionate, dedicated, knowledgeable community members who are ready to put their hearts, their backs, and their time into this project. And they're not even asking us to pay for it. They're only asking us not to take the land out from under them. And in fact, thinking about it that way, selling the land out from under them feels like a very settler thing to do. And that's been making me feel quite nauseous. Sure, if we sell, we can use the money to help make the new Cedar Hill Middle School net zero carbon, whatever the proper terminology is. But we shouldn't have to pay for climate action at the sake of the environment. As we've heard tonight and over the last couple of weeks, we're in the middle of budget season. And this year we have so many constraints, so many things we would love to champion, but simply can't. We are forced to make some really difficult and at times heartbreaking decisions about where we spend our district money. But this is not one of those decisions. This land sale won't and can't help balance the budget. Since we're talking about bias, I'm a biologist and a biology teacher by training. When I was teaching, I would have loved an opportunity like this to share with my students. The ability for kids to take part in this restoration project, from planning to physically doing the work to benefiting from the restored creek and outdoor classroom, is just too valuable. This land is not surplus. There have been a lot of arguments about our process, about legality, whether or not consultation was adequate, And I think it's clear we need to revisit some of our policies, but that's no help now. And I don't think it's the primary issue. Selling the land is simply not the right thing to do. The right thing for us to do today is to honor our commitment to the Bowker Creek Blueprint. It's to stand with our community and with the environment. It's to set a good example for our students. It's to have faith that the people who are begging us not to sell this land aren't going to vanish, but that they will continue to do the work they've already been doing for years. The right thing to do is to recognize that they have passion and dedication and to honor that. So let's do the right thing and make this project a shining example, a model that other schools, municipalities, and districts will strive to emulate. To our staff and to hospice, I feel like I need to apologize. I know that everybody has worked incredibly hard on this. Everyone's been collaborating with multiple partners. Hospice has provided a beautiful compromise, but I've just come to the decision that I really need to vote to keep this land. And so I asked my fellow trustees, let's be on the right side of history with this one. We've got some really hard decisions coming up, but this doesn't need to be one of them.
Thanks, Angie. Appreciate your contributions to this debate. Nicole?
Yeah, I wanted to give the board an opportunity to table this. And so I would move that at this point.
Motion to table to a definite time or table indefinitely?
Well, table indefinitely, I think would be the more appropriate, but I will present my rationale in a moment.
Okay, so we have a motion to table indefinitely, and that is seconded by Trustee Whitaker. Nicole, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So, you know, we have heard a lot of concerns around this from a consultation and process perspective, from a legal perspective, from an environmental and climate change perspective, and from the perspective of our community, both our learning community and the wider community around Lansdowne South. And I wanted to move a motion to table to this third reading of the bylaw until we can satisfy ourselves that, I guess, A, that the board is in fact at this point properly constituted following suspension of 2 trustees, and B, that we are looking at a significantly changed. I would say that there are material changes to the proposed sale agreement from first to second reading. What we're voting on tonight is significantly different, and I understand that that view is not in line with the advice that we've received tonight from our Secretary Treasurer, and I respect that that there is a different view there. However, when I look at both the fact that this property line will be different, that we have not discussed as a board the impacts that could arise from having the property divided in this way, what the flood mitigation risks are, both in this property, the wider community, and also at our Lansdowne North campus. I could go on, but I won't. My point really is that there are significant changes that we haven't had time to assess. I put forward a motion at our combined ops and ed policy meetings with the hope that we would pause and take the time to start to think about some of those risks. And I appreciate that my colleagues didn't support that motion, so I didn't choose to bring it to the board because I recognize that at those standing committee meetings, the whole board is now there. But to me, this is really about giving the board another opportunity to pause, to reflect, to gather more information, and consider the plethora of concerns that we have heard from our learning community, and to not rush to a decision on this. But I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Thanks, Nicole. Trustee Whitaker, you seconded. And again, just reminding folks, we are debating a motion to table. So the debate is on the support or opposition to tabling. We're going to try as much as we can to stay away from debating the actual motion. Right now, we're talking about the motion to table. So Trustee Whitaker, over to you.
Thank you. I too, like Trustee Duncan, I am, and I think through my questions, I think it's clear that I am concerned that the bylaw is not reflective of the actual content of what we're really discussing. As Trustee Duncan says, the lines changed, the plans changed, and while we have received several presentations, I don't know that there's been the time to have any back and forth discussion about what those changes are. And you know what, I think that there is time. We've already delayed once, and I just would rather us, slow down, and if there is that opportunity to write an appropriate bylaw that is reflective, I think that is the way we should be going. I think it's always better to do things clean and properly rather than, oh, well, we're going to just pencil this and, keep signing the check because it's been changed all along the way at this point in the game. And I'm also concerned about, the piece of disclosure. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Other trustees on the motion to table or not to table indefinitely? Elaine.
Just on the motion to table, I'm not in favor of tabling this evening. I think we've had lots of presentations, lots of information. We've had trustees being able to ask multitudes of questions over the last couple of months, actually. And I think I haven't heard any new questions this evening. So I'm not in favor of tabling at this point in time.
Thanks, Elaine. Jordan, did I see your hand up? Sorry, I thought maybe I saw you.
Yeah, I was just going to share. I'm also not in favor. I think if the bylaw is not going to pass, it should be voted down. And I think postponing indefinitely just creates a lot of uncertainty for our community. So to me, it just doesn't feel like it's in the best interest. So I'd rather have the debate on the question. I mean, third reading, once you get to that point, I think you really do need to. The community needs to hear from trustees, and I think we need to make a decision for the sake of our community and our partners and our staff, even if it is really hard.
Okay, thank you, Jordan. Trustees, further comments, debate, seeing and hearing none. I'll call the question on the motion to table. So if you are in favor, just for everyone, if you are in favor of the motion to table, you agree to table this motion indefinitely. And if you are opposed to tabling it indefinitely. So all those in favor of tabling this third reading indefinitely this evening, please signify. And opposed. And the motion to table fails. We're back to the main motion. So the main motion is in front of us. Trustees, you have opportunity to speak to the motion if you'd like. Tom, over to you.
Great, thank you. I look forward to the opportunities that this partnership with Victoria Hospice Society offers us. I think our students will benefit by witnessing and possibly taking part in the improvements to Bowker Creek. I think that it probably would have been many years before this creek was really even looked at or noticed had we not had this situation arise. I'm very thankful to VHS for continuing to modify their proposal in order to accommodate the community and to accommodate the needs of the creek. And I'm also thankful to members of our operations staff who have looked at the possibilities for what we can do as a district to have floodplain supports in not just in this property, but in other properties around the district. So I'm very much in favor of the motion. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tom. Any other trustees wishing to comment? Elaine.
Thank you. I too will support the third reading of the bylaw. When we first entered into discussions with Victoria Hospice, they didn't know about the blueprints and had no didn't know what they were walking into, if I've put it that way. They have risen to the occasion. They have hired consultants, they have hired experts, and I am very excited by what they have come forward with and how they have worked with the original blueprint in order to make this into, it looks like a very welcoming and attractive part of the community, and as well as looking at the flooding issues. So I'm very appreciative of the time and the effort that they have taken and the expense. There's no doubt about that, in order to bring this forward to us. I don't think it would, well, I don't believe that we would have, as a school district, had been able to put any money into this with the budgets as tight as they are with our school district. So I'm very heartened to see what their proposals are, and talking about the floodplain that they're even willing to expense on our side of the district, and just the mitigation of and making it more accessible, safer, and hopefully something that the whole community can be proud of. So I will be voting for this.
Thanks, Elaine. Trustees, any further comment? Trustee Whitaker.
Thank you. So for me, I believe the community has spoken very clearly that they see another use for this land. The community plans in the area speak to another use for the plan, and those are done with consultation throughout the community, with all the partners and with municipalities. There's concerns that there's been, or I have concerns as well that, you know, it's not like this land was up for sale, that we were looking to sell it, that, you know, there was bids or anything else. In fact, hospice approached us and knocked on the door. So for me, you know, there was no demand to sell this. There was no plan for this money. So I'm concerned that there isn't been any type of, you know, like the District of Saanich hasn't had an opportunity to, if they would like the property. So there's been no competition there. And the fact that, anyway, the fact that there are so many pieces about process and whether or not we've consulted properly, you know, I could go on and on about that, but I don't really want to focus just on that. It is a concern for me, a deep concern for me. I believe process is really important, and that's how we ensure that everybody is heard and that we are moving forward in a good way. But what I really want to speak about is the land and the value of the land. The land has been valued at $2.5 million. But I've been listening to the community. I've walked the land. I've been listening to the elders. And in my opinion, this land is priceless. It is a one-of-a-kind piece of land, of a parcel. Its value cannot be measured in dollars, right? This land provides a critical piece of infrastructure to combat climate change, which we know is going to increase and get worse. This land provides the opportunity for wetland space desperately needed in the area, for habitat, for salmon, for waterfowl, for pollinators, and for many other creatures and biodiversity. What we know is biodiversity is critical to a healthy environment. This land provides much needed green space for our community to gather, for recreation, and most importantly, for our mental well-being, right? In an area that has got such significant densification underway and planning, it's just going to continue to grow. And as Trustee Hensa has said, there isn't a lot of other area available in this community. It was a good, healthy community thing to have more land and green space. And as I said, I've been listening and learning from the elders and other members of my communities, and I have learned that we all thrive when we can see our relationship and respect that with the land. It is a reciprocal relationship. It's us and the land. When the land is sick, we are sick, as are all the other living things that we share this place with. We're leaders and we're role models for our students. And, you know, I've been listening to them too, and they're upset and they're worried about climate change. And we should be asking ourselves how we can be sure that this land is going to be there for them, that we give them hope that there is climate action possibilities, that we can do things to change what they believe is a very sad outcome for themselves. We know that kids need healthy space. The data says so. They need that green space. It helps them to be grounded. It helps them to keep engaged and connected. We know that climate change will bring more floods, more progressive days. It's not going to be 1 or 2 days. It's going to be often throughout many, many different events. And we know that once this land is developed, it will never, ever be an urban wetland. It will be paved. And most importantly for me, I think that we owe our students and our families and our community to do better. We need to be those leaders that inspire our students with hope for a future with natural spaces that they can access, that they don't have to travel far to. So for me, I cannot support this motion because there are so many other possibilities. It's not about hospice. They do great work. What this is about is what will be there for the future of our students and for the future of our community and just for the future of all of us. There is a lot to offer in this land. It's not, as I think was first presented, this tiny little corner that had no value to the community. The community has spoken. They don't want us to sell this land, and we need to listen to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Whitaker. Trustees, I believe, yeah, oh, there we go, Nicole.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think, my colleagues have spoken and to a lot of the issues and concerns. I continue to be of the view that we should not be selling this land. And as I've listened and to our stakeholders, to rights holders, and to experts who've been working on and through the Boca Creek Initiative, for 20 odd years, it's become more and more clear to me that that this is not the right decision. That we need to allow the partners that have been doing all this good work, including our own staff who participated in the latest piece of work, the daylighting feasibility study, and our partners who are writing grant applications, who've got plans for the future for this land that will benefit our students and will benefit the community. It's rare at a board table, and it's rare at our board table to have such an overwhelming number of stakeholders come forward in unison and say to us, do not sell this land. We've heard loud and clear, do not sell this land. We've also heard from a number of our key partners within the Boca Creek Initiative that they are concerned that despite hospice's, good intentions, and this is not about hospice, and I think it's been said a few times, it's not about the good work that hospice does. It's not about not supporting hospice. I haven't heard anyone around this table say that they don't support the good work that hospice has done and it will continue to do in our community. The issue is that it isn't clear to folks that despite their best efforts to come forward with a couple of different options, it isn't clear that we can accomplish the goals, what would be the most advantageous goals for the community and for our students, with the plans they've put forward to date. There's the process issues, which I think have been articulated very well by certainly some of our partners and by some of my colleagues. The process issues, I do hope that we take those forward and that we look at how we do these kinds of consultations around land sales and look for areas where we can grow and improve and learn. But my main concern is that this land is not surplus to educational needs, that in fact, we've got a growing community. We've got an overcrowded Lansdowne Middle School where we've actually had to open up the former Richmond Elementary School and call it Lansdowne South to accommodate that enrollment. We've got 2 aging buildings, both the Richmonds or the Lansdowne South and Lansdowne North. They will eventually reach the end of their useful life, and we will need to look at rebuilding. I really hope that that we don't let our community down on this one. it might be tempting to look at the $2.5 million and go, oh, that will help to balance the budget. We've heard that that money can't be used to balance the budget. That's not what it's for. And so, it's a short-term gain, financial gain, and the loss here to the community and to our students, and the damage done to partnerships that we and our staff have been building over many, many years, is something that I hope that we avoid, and we just don't go down that track. Then the final thing I will say is that, I've been concerned over the years about, how we go about determining whether a land is surplus. And the more I learn about the way that educational lands over the years, over the decades have been disposed of, the more concerned I grow. And, there's this other issue that I think runs through all of this, and that's about preserving public land for educational purposes. And we have a greater obligation, not just to our current students, but to students 10, 15, 60, 100 years from now. When this land is gone, it's gone. It's only going to get more expensive and less available over time. And, I think the letter that our board received from the GVTA really very clearly put that across to us. When the land is gone, it's gone. So I would urge my colleagues to really think deeply about this decision. And I know it's difficult and I know it's complex, but I just can't support the third reading, and I can't support the sale.
Thanks, Nicole, for your intervention. Appreciate it. Who do we have who hasn't spoken? Jordan. Yes, over to you.
Thanks, Ryan, and thank you to all my trustee colleagues for sharing your perspectives. It's great to be having this conversation tonight, although it's super, super difficult, and I felt kind of sick about it all weekend because I know how much our community is engaged in this process. And, I've heard voices on all sides. I think it's, behooves us to listen to, even the quiet voices too. And that is challenging. And I have reached out to folks and had a lot of those conversations. And it's been a really valuable exercise in the same way that it's helpful to me listening to all of your perspectives. Tonight, SD61 is one of the largest landholders in the CRD. I think we're like the third largest. I mean, we have 48 schools, but there's also, all these other parcels of land. You've got, facilities in Tomi and Quadra, and we're responsible for, all of these facilities and for our 20,000 students. And that really is like my primary focus is those kids and how we make, how to best make decisions to serve them and their needs. I just want to be really clear that I hope nobody thinks that selling this land or any land to balance a budget is going to be a good idea, because that is not how it works at all. However, it is a way for us to be able to invest in ourselves over time. And for me, what I see is a real need, across our 51 buildings. If we want to lower our carbon footprint, then we need to make significant investments in those buildings. And we cannot do that without making some, generating some revenue. And unfortunately, land sales is a key part of that. I wouldn't, and I've said this before when we debated the bylaws earlier, I wouldn't consider selling to the highest bidder, because I think the land is the land, and it is, critically important to our communities and to our schools. But when I look at our position, when I look at, do you remember the report that we had on our urban forests that we are responsible for, and how, our trees need help. We need to be putting money into maintaining those trees. Otherwise, they're going to start falling down and hurting people. I mean, we have all of this critical role to play in terms of green space in our communities. We don't have the money to be remediating this incredibly important stretch of Boker Creek. But Victoria Hospice, they want this parcel specifically because of that aspect. And they want, they've got, the biologist and the architects. I mean, they've got a whole team of professionals who are looking at how do we do this in the best possible way to protect and remediate that creek, because really the way it is right now isn't, I mean, the creek, of course, is worth protecting, but I mean, it has been left in disrepair, and that is, it's our shame, but it's also, I think, really indicative of the position that the school district is in, and that we need to put money, as close to our kids as possible, and being able to maintain fences and allow a creek to meander and capture, 4.9 million liters. I mean, these are not things that I see us able to do. But we can be great partners, as we are there at Richmond School, and we can be great partners, at the table, through this project and through this process. And I think, this process has been, in my view, really robust. I mean, I've heard from so many different people, and I know there've been so many consultations. And for me, the shifts in the plan as we moved along are very encouraging, because it shows to me how keen Victoria Hospice Society is in listening to the community and making sure that their plans reflect the needs and desires of the community. And I understand that folks are really scared about what's going to happen, and that they're, let's pave paradise and put up a parking lot. But that isn't the plan for this land. This is to create improvements to Boker Creek in alignment with the blueprint. And that's not a thing that SD61 can do unless we're diverting, funds from some pretty critical infrastructure pieces that we need to do. So for me, I see this, when we look at Cedar Hill and how do we build a school or any of our schools as their, buildings are the, number one carbon creators for our district, and likewise for all public entities. How do we build these buildings or improve our existing buildings so that they are going to help us reach the goals set out for us, both as a board in terms of what we've said that we are committed to, and globally in terms of like the IPCC. So for me, I'm going to support the motion tonight, and I'm going to do it because I think it's the best thing to do for the land and for the district and the kids that we serve. And I am really hopeful and encouraged by the energy and commitment and passion of the Friends of Boker Creek and all members of the community that have come forward and spoken with such love for this land. And I know that other partners would have run and said, what, maybe this isn't for us. But Victoria Hospice leaned in, and they're developing plans that, support those community visions. And so I think it's going to be beautiful. Like, I really do. I have a vision. I can see it. And I know that we as a district can't make that happen. And so I'm glad that we can trade off and allow a good community partner come in and do that work. While we can make some investments that are going to save us in the long run. So thank you for listening to me. I'm sorry if I was a little long-winded, but I appreciate the opportunity to share my perspective.
Thanks, Jordan. I guess I will put myself on the list as the last speaker, just to say that I appreciate immensely every bit of input that we have received on this really obviously important matter that our community is engaged in. I have walked this particular stretch of our school district a lot with people individually, and had a lovely walk with a group all the way down through Kings and all the way to the hospital, going away all the way along, where the floods had happened, and seeing all the sandbags that had been put up and all the challenges along the Bowker from the atmospheric river that we had in November. And every time I've walked this space, what was acutely aware to me is that this is what exists after 4 years of having signed the Bowker Creek Blueprint, and nothing happened. And as much as I appreciate and value the energy and effort that community can bring to these kinds of discussions, it is important to me as somebody who looks at these decisions through a fiduciary lens. Is it reasonable and responsible to hope that money will come down the line? In the meantime, we have a tremendous capital deficit, a capital maintenance deficit in our district, and we have committed to net zero ready at Cedar Hill. That's a commitment that we've made, which is an environmental commitment for that new build. At the same time, I see that we have a partner who is willing to come in and discuss and engage and consult. We have deferred this decision 2 times to allow for more community consultation. Well, one, to allow for more community consultation, one for an administrative piece, but regardless, it all allowed for more community input. And boy, howdy, have we received it. And I am encouraged by how engaged our community is. And I see this as, and I know it's hard, but I see this as the win-win, the hopeful win-win that I know some are challenged to see it as. We have a partner who has, as Trustee Waters has mentioned, has changed the design all the way along in response to community. That's the kind of responsible community partner you want to have. And we have a partner who is committed to the integrity of the Bowker Creek Blueprint and the vision for what to turn that space into, even including an outdoor class space where our kids can come and enjoy nature and be part of that nature, you know, that connection to nature that Trustee Whitaker so passionately spoke about, that connection to the land. Hospice is committed to building that into this proposal. So with that, with the stormwater detention, not just at Lansdowne South, but potentially at Lansdowne North, and the ability for us to work with hospice to build in a really truly legacy project. I do see this as a legacy project for this district because we can change this creek for the better. So it can be that bastion in Reach 9 that I know people really want it to be. None of these decisions are easy. None of these decisions are done quickly. There is no black and white here. There's a whole lot of gray. But what it means is that we have to make the best decision that we can, the decision that we think is right, bring in all factors. And I appreciate the consultation that has happened, the efforts that our staff and our district have done to get opinions, get the voices of the community and the public to our table. But I've also done my own outreach. I've also done my own engagement on this. And as Trustee Waters talks about the silent voices, because they are out there, hearing about the importance of building this space and the importance of protecting our schools for the community, for the students, not just now, but into the future. You know, I've talked to folks who are saying, why is there such a demand for capital dollars? Because we don't have enough funding. We need more funding to do the capital work that we have to do. 14 or 15 of our buildings are rated H1, which is the highest need for seismic. And we can't do them all at once. And so we have to, unfortunately, or fortunately, as the case may be, because I do think this is a legacy piece, look at selling and disposing of land in order to make our schools safe for our kids. And that is the reality of the situation, as challenging as that reality looks. I am heartened, so heartened that we have a partner in VHS that is going to help bring in a low impact building to this space, underground parking, and that is going to do the work with community and with us to build a beautiful creek for us, for the community, for the school, and for future generations. And I think it will just enhance this community now and into the future. So I'm encouraged to be voting in favor of this, because I do think, despite how much concern there is now, and I appreciate all of that concern, and the district is not going to walk away from this and say our hands are free of this now. There is as much commitment here now as there will be going forward to ensure that this is what we want to build, that this is the design that we have in mind. But I'm so encouraged that this is going to be that important piece for this community going forward. And I look forward to seeing what happens in the future and building that beautiful new space that I know this can be. So I do look forward to voting in favor of this tonight. And with that, we have had all of our speakers, so I will call the question on third reading of the bylaw today, March 14th, 2022. All those in favor of third reading, please signify. All those opposed? And the motion passes. So we'll go to question period. I have two questions. One of them, I'll read them both out because I have them both here. In cases where the board is no longer comprised of the required number of active trustees set out in Section 30 of the School Act and is therefore no longer able to act as a whole, where does the board derive its authority? If the board as currently comprised believes it continues to act as a whole, can the board chair please explain why a board's ability to act as a whole does not depend on the ability of each of its trustees to exercise their core statutory duties as elected trustees, included but not limited to attendance and participation in public meetings? In this explanation, please provide the specific sections of legislation and board policy that specify the circumstances in which a quorum of a board has an inherent or implied power to remove or suspend trustees by a majority vote. So there's some really key pieces in there in terms of referring to legislation and board policy. I don't have that information in front of me. I'll be happy to provide not only the questioner with a response, but we'll include that response in the minutes of the next meeting. I have another question here. The current bylaw text includes the following text. The board, this is with regards to the motion that the board just passed. The board proposes to subdivide and sell to the Victoria Hospice Society, the VHS, a portion of the property lying to the west and south of Bucker Creek and measuring approximately 1.9 acres in an area as shown on Schedule A attached here too, pursuant to terms of a conditional agreement of purchase and sale for the price of 2.5 adjusted. How is it that you can vote on this bylaw tonight when we know that the Victoria Hospice Society proposal has changed from the original proposal on which this bylaw is based? The latest proposal encompasses 1.3 acres and has changed significantly. In fact, it has changed twice since the original agreement signed September 27, 2021. This bylaw concerns an agreement on a plan that no longer exists. How can you legitimately vote on this? What parcel of land are you actively selling? If you vote yes, 1.9 or 1.3. I believe there's some individual questions to individual trustees, so I'll leave that for individual trustees to address in terms of how can you vote and vote legitimately, those pieces. In terms of the 1.9, 1.3, can I just turn it back to Secretary Treasurer Morris just to re-clarify what I know Trustee Whitaker asked earlier around the 1.9, 1.3 piece, please? Thank you.
Sure. So our advice is that the change is not substantial and that there is room in the original bylaw that and this current bylaw that the board just passed to make some of those changes. I think that's the gist of it.
Okay, thank you very much. Public disclosure of in-camera items. We have 3 records of meetings, 2 special and 1 regular in camera. We have no new business and no notices of motion. So I will call for a motion that the meeting be adjourned. Oh, hold on. Trustee Whitaker? Yeah.
Sorry, you just said that there were individual trustee questions that we could individually answer. Where are they? In your trust?
So the trust, I'm happy to forward the questions to you. It was a part of the question that came from, I won't say who it came from because I don't have their permission to share their email, but it was questions about how can you legitimately vote for this tonight? How can you vote on this bylaw when? So it was questions to me that seemed directed at individual trustees, not necessarily at the board. So how would the trustees want me to?
Can you forward the email just in case we need to answer that? I don't know if we got it, but I don't think I did.
It comes to trustee questions, Trustee Whitaker, like to adjust the trustee questions email address. That's usually what happens in board meetings. So
right, so we won't get it.
No, that's what I'm saying. You wouldn't get it. So I don't have permission to share it from the sender. So I'm going to email them back when we're done here and see if I can share it with trustees. And then perhaps trustees can respond individually if they would like. But with a reminder that trustees, we now have a motion that has been voted on by the board that has been approved. And that is the will of the board. Can I have a motion to adjourn, please? Moved by Tom, seconded by Nicole. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you very much.